Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live, December 1, 2022. The year's almost over. How are you, John?
Oh, Tim, what a great question. You're laughing there because I got a lot going on and I'm terribly stressed about so many things.
You're
End
doing
of
okay,
year,
man. You're still breathing. You're still
still
breathing.
breathing, still breathing. Yeah, it's end of year. There's lots of things going on. Solar projects have challenges. Just taking on probably a little more work than I should outside of solar construction and just trying to do as best I could. But the world is busy, man, and it's the end of the year. And sometimes modules don't show up. Sometimes panel boards don't show up. Sometimes disconnects get delayed for a third time, Timothy. 2 disconnects delayed for a third time, Timothy. So it's just stresses. Got to take care of
well,
customers.
I hope Santa's listening and he's going to bring you some disconnects for Christmas.
Is that within Santa? Does Santa Claus have solar disconnects, AC and DC disconnects within his scope of
I think he does.
deliveries?
I think he does. That's what Santa does, dude.
I hope it's real. I will digress a tiny bit. I did Thanksgiving with the family. Had about 18 of us together. It was really nice. And I had my brother's 4 little kids there running around. And there was a discussion about whether Santa Claus was real. And it was, yeah. And the 8-year-old was telling the 5-year-old that stuff is fake. And then the 5-year-old was like, I already knew it was fake. And it's just like, oh, it was cute.
Yeah, we start lying to our fellow humans at an early age, and fake news is real, right? Like that ability we have to fool ourselves is very deep, and we do it around a lot of things, not just Santa Claus.
We think solar projects are going to close when the probability of them is pretty low sometimes.
We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that.
The life of a salesperson, Timothy. The life of sales. It's good.
But there are crazier things happening in the world than disconnects not showing up.
Yes,
our friend Elon Musk has, I think, broken the land speed record for Crazy Town with his shenanigans with Twitter, and going to war with Apple, and then kissing and making up with Tim Cook yesterday. I was glad to see Tim Cook held out an olive branch to Elon. But as we were saying, also, these guys live in the Matrix, and I think they think it's kind of entertaining, right? And we're just pawns. But or not. You can choose to go off the platform and not watch the shenanigans. I tell my friends and family. I went to visit my family over Thanksgiving too, and my sister-in-law likes to give me a hard time. She goes, "So, how's that Elon working out for you?" Because I'm a Tesla investor, Tesla fan all the way. I do believe in Tesla. And we're going to talk about the semi here in a second. I think the Twitter play is all about making more money to go to Mars, or making more influence to make more money to go to Mars. And he doesn't like to talk about that because that sounds crazy to most people, not to you and I. We understand that mission. It's not complicated, actually. It's just a mission to go further than we might go as a single planet species, right? We'll go further if we go to 2 planets. Will we go to 3 or 4? It's going to be very hard to go to 2. It's going to be very, very expensive. And that's why Elon is trying to make money with things like Neuralink and Boring Company, and, right. And he is a genius, but he's also crazier than all get out. And they, I get it why advertisers want nothing to do with him. He's crazy. Letting Donald Trump back on the platform is a horrible idea. It's a private company. This BS about, we're going to save free speech, that is a bunch of BS. I'm sorry. Twitter can't save free speech any more than you or I can, John Weaver.
Yeah, I've lost a tiny bit of energy. I used to post significantly to Twitter. and I've lost a tiny bit of energy, a decent amount of energy, actually.
Yeah.
And it's affecting it actually has a knock-on effect, because usually my reading of the news gives me good energy, because I'm like, oh, look what I just found. Look at this little information I just found. Let me share it with the people who are also interested in solar news. And I've, worked hard to get a bunch of them on Twitter. And there's lots of people who want to know about solar tech, solar news, solar prices, hardware, manufacturing. And this little dance has affected me to some degree. It's not, it's just affected me. It's in my head. Some of the things that Musk does, some of the people he associates with, some of his political opinions, I disagree with his categorizations of how the political spectrum has been displayed on Twitter. There's plenty of research that shows different political ideologies being pushed in different volumes on Twitter as a result of the algorithms, and it's he says things. He doesn't say things that are necessarily the truth. He doesn't say things that are necessarily going to happen right away. He is there to troll the world and get people to pay attention, because he saw that Twitter was profitable during Donald Trump's first 2 years. That was the first time Twitter was ever profitable, was during Donald Trump going nuts on Twitter. And then as Donald Trump, people realized he was an absolute freak, Twitter numbers, Twitter profitability went away again. So it's a platform for communication amongst people on the planet, and it was a pretty good one. I hope it holds on good, but I do definitely see people reacting differently to it. And I do feel my energy has changed, similarly to how my energy changed with Facebook, when I used to really enjoy sharing.
Yeah.
Science.
When you learn that the leadership of a company are not necessarily looking out for your best interests and really just trying to make money, that changes things. And Facebook,
if it was only money, I would have been okay with Facebook. But Facebook got into politics and went aggressive manner.
And they sold our information for nefarious purposes to people with nefarious purposes. Like, that's not cool, man.
Yeah.
So have a little respect. So anyway, let's talk about Semi Day, though, or whatever they're calling it. Right. There's an electric semi in America now. It's real. It's going to start shipping next year.
Today.
Oh, they're going to actually deliver some to customers today?
I did put a link on there for Canary Media on our document to talk about it, because today is Semi Day for Tesla and they will show it off. But I'm almost certain that Pepsi Cola will get a Tesla semi. Maybe it's going to go today. Maybe it's going to get sent next week, but it's coming, and supposedly it's real. So not next year. I think Pepsi's getting the first ones now. So if you scroll down a tiny bit,
the battery-powered Behemoth with up to 500-mile range is the first semi designed from the start to be electric. Musk says it's super fun to drive. Well, yeah, of course it is. It's a Tesla.
Semi. Yeah, it's true. Here we go. So right there, Tesla. By the end of the year, expects to deploy 15 by the end of this year. Okay, so maybe by the end of the year, before next year.
Look at that, though. Renault delivers an electric semi to Coca-Cola. Interesting.
Yes. And one of the following articles I'd like us to look at is that Volvo delivered the first large truck that's made out of fossil fuel steel.
Fossil fuel free steel, you mean?
Yes, pardon me. Fossil fuel free steel. So this is cool. The biggest reason that this is good is pollution. More pollution and more fossils are used by trucks and large vehicles by far on a per unit basis than cars. In fact, occasionally, I'm like, I wish I could better optimize the use of my electric car so that the batteries are used more, so that we don't waste this piece of hardware. And the fact that these trucks are going to get hundreds of thousands of miles per year, per few years. I think they said 3 years, 750,000 miles. That means that they're going to be offsetting a significantly greater amount of fossil fuels, air pollution, climate change effect. And that's just awesome. And it also seems like hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings, $200,000 every 3 years. That covers the cost of the unit. Somewhere in the article, it says the units are $150,000 to $180,000 per semi. Wow, if you can save that much in fuel in 3 years, then you're done. That's pretty nice. And
cash positive in 3 years. That will inspire people to buy these things for sure.
Yeah.
The bottleneck is not, these stats are great. 0 to 60 in 20 seconds. That's 3 times faster than a diesel truck. Drivers are going to love that. They'll get further faster, right? They want to deliver the goods. They want to get on. It's my cousin is a truck driver, and he's constantly complaining about the ride and how uncomfortable and slow, and it's just not, it's not a great experience for these drivers. So the bottleneck though is getting enough of them built, right? Manufacturing, and batteries. I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with a company called Alsym, ALSYM. Check it out. They're making a aqueous battery with manganese as the primary ingredient, not lithium, a completely lithium-free chemistry that they claim is going to be good for transportation and stationary storage. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, right? But but they've got pre-orders from EV makers, one in India. So anyway, it's nice to see the storage ecosystem diversifying, right? We need more than just lithium iron or lithium cobalt or whatever. Cobalt got to go bye-bye. Cobalt no good. Because it's just concentrated in places, right, where there's slave labor, basically. The Congo, isn't it?
That's changing though. It's we're starting to mine cobalt in other places where the volume of the percentage of cobalt that's coming from Congo is going down. But at the same time, there are already lithium phosphate batteries in cars, which don't have any cobalt. The car doesn't have as high of a range, but it's already happening. And most stationary energy storage, to the best of my knowledge, has 0 cobalt. So, it's only
of course, there's multiple ways to skin this cat. Cobalt there are workarounds, right? And and so that's good. All right, well, let's talk about megawatt class hydrogen fuel cell powertrain. Ooh, interesting.
Sure. It's for an airplane. And I just thought it was cool looking.
Flying hydrogen power plants, right?
Yes. So this plant, I believe, I found it on LinkedIn. It's a megawatt facility. I guess it's a fuel cell, but the fuel cell drives a jet engine, and it's for a 40 to 50 passenger plane. And just looking at the unit's cool. You can see it's in pretty much a structure of an airplane, probably not a flying airplane, but you can tell that what they are trying to create there in that image is, you can see the wing and everything. And it's
quite an image. It looks like an airplane engine, which makes sense. It is designed to be an airplane engine.
They have an airplane surrounding it with wings. It's probably a test facility somewhere. And this is actually a conversion kit. And they're trying to turn a regular airplane that burns fossils into a hydrogen powered
Well, how does that work though? Because a fuel cell produces electricity, John.
Well, the electricity can turn all these different components, because if you
the electricity would drive an electric motor. Are you saying there's an electric jet engine? Is that you can make a jet engine that's electric?
Well, first I'm going to respond with something I don't know anything about, but aren't all
John Weaver,
engines?
aerospace engineer.
Oh, geez.
I think you have another career in your future, John.
No. I barely got one. I got too many right now. I was focused on some solar. I always assume that when the oil and the fuel is burnt somewhere, it's generating electricity. Because in a car, you burn fuel, it spins. You start spinning your pieces. You have your alternator. All that stuff is. Yeah, I guess it doesn't actually need the electricity, but we have the ability to spin a turbine with hydrogen. We have the ability to spin a turbine with fossils. We have the ability to spin it with electric. If
Yeah,
this
I'm just trying to understand the fuel cell play here. I hadn't heard that you can make an electric jet engine. A jet engine is like fundamentally a fossil fuel device, but it's cool, man. We don't have to answer
fuel
that question.
cell
You, our
powertrain.
listener, might be able to answer that question. And before I forget, check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com, cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify, please. A review would be amazing. Give us a Christmas gift with a review on Apple or Spotify so others can find this content and help us speed the energy transition. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So anything else about hydrogen fuel cell? I mean, I think hydrogen for long distance air transportation is going to be a thing. Clearly, batteries are not going to be a thing for aircraft. It's just they're too heavy. And but hydrogen could work.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already have some electric aircraft, very small ones. And there's people and I saw the first flying electric Learjet type item. So there are some jet engines that are electric in the world. And we've seen them. And you can actually buy an electric vehicle or an electric airplane. Well, I don't know if you can buy one, but you can test one or you can put an order in for one. And I've even seen that there are hundreds of electric airplanes ordered. When I saw something being covered by Bloomberg recently.
Oh yeah.
So
200-mile range aircraft are definitely going to be a thing, so for regional, that's wonderful. It's just the transatlantic gets difficult. That's my read, but time will tell.
We're early in it. I'm hopeful. I believe that I've seen some people say once we get up to about 400 watts per kilogram of electricity, of usable electricity from batteries, some have suggested that that's the beginning number for electric large airplanes to be useful. So there's always the potential that we could make the batteries into the structure of the airplane. Now, of course, airplanes are super light, super thin, ultra optimized. So maybe there's not a lot of structure to be a battery, but I don't know. I'll never say no. I'll never say never because I've been wrong so many times over and over and over.
Sure. I mean, you think about these pouch batteries, that's the thing, these pouches. So there's two form factors for batteries, basically, right? There's cylinders or a variation on a cylinder. Some of them are octagonal or hexagonal. And then there's pouches. And you could make the surface of the aircraft out of a pouch, right? Okay, you need a surface, you need a structure. So yeah, could do. But
there's a million reasons why it might not work. But all we need is it to work once, though. And listen, the aliens that are visiting us are definitely not using fossils. They might be using fusion, though. So,
there's aliens among us, John.
What do you think Elon is?
Well, yeah, he has pretty much said as much.
Yes.
Him and Kanye, definitely aliens.
Before we jump beyond, Kanye and Elon.
This is like the transportation edition of the Clean Power Hour. Do you want to talk about Volvo and their green steel? I don't quite understand what Volvo's doing here, but
totally. Yes. Really? I just want to show people the truck and say that this is a truck that's made out of zero fossil fuel steel. We started making steel, I believe, in Sweden about a year ago. And this truck right here has no fossil fuel steel in it. It's just a standard truck. And it has steel. There's no difference between it. And it might
And
even
it's
be
an
an
electric truck, right?
It's an electric truck, yes.
So Tesla got beat to the punch though for the semi, right? By Volvo and what was the other one? The other European maker that we mentioned earlier?
Renault.
Renault.
Yeah, Renault. Oh, pardon, Renault.
The little known French company that doesn't sell cars in America, but anyway, big player. I watched.
They also got beat to the pickup, the electric pickup, by everybody else too. So they,
right.
they made a couple of announcements.
They're weighing their, right. They're busy making 3s and Ys, and the Y is now the most popular electric vehicle in most of the world, and will soon be the most popular car, probably bar none, in America. I predict.
Okay.
Super. I've been following you on Twitter, so I hope you don't go off Twitter just because it allows me to know what the hell John Weaver's up to in the world. And you had some charging challenges over the holidays, I noted.
Yes.
And that is my concern, right? Is that your experience is going to get, and you're an early adopter, right? So your pain tolerance is way higher than the average consumer.
Yes, it is.
And the average consumer is going to go, holy crapola, all these broken chargers that aren't working, or taking 15 minutes to get it to start. Who has 15 minutes to plug in? Come on.
Now, this doesn't occur on the Tesla supercharger network.
That's right.
And that's a key piece. When I used, I had Tesla for a year and a quarter, and every time I plugged in, things worked. I can't remember feeling like things ever didn't work. Every single time, plugged in, click, boom, gone.
Yeah.
Now it's a little more complex. And for instance, the Electrify America, it charged wonderfully the whole time. There was 1 or 2 times when it was a little slow. Could have been because of the cold and that my car doesn't have a battery preheater, but it had some challenges, and people are gonna want to deal with it. But seeing things like semi trucks on the road is going to motivate people. And for instance, this Volvo vehicle, the coolest thing there's 2 cool things. One, the steel was made from hydrogen. The hydrogen, I don't know how the hydrogen was made, probably not via clean electricity yet, but we're working on it. And then the vehicle itself is electric. So, that vehicle from Volvo represents something, the next stage, the next thing, more so as of yet than the semi that's being launched today by Tesla, more so than by Renault and their cool thing. Not as big as the launch of the Model 3, because the launch of the Model 3 was a start really of the modern electric vehicle taking off. Maybe the Model S or Y, actually, or X and the Y. But so it's, this is going to happen fast, or faster than many of us think. We're going to see a lot of electric cars. We're going to have to fix that infrastructure. And I'm a pusher of it. I just drove 350, 400 miles. Took me 2 charges because I always, I had the heat up. I go 72 miles an hour. I probably could have got there on 1 charge if I was ultra optimized, but I pulled over and slept. But I had multiple times where I pull up to this charger, I plug in my Electrify America, and it says my automatic payment wouldn't work. And so I had to call in, had to manage the process, reset it. And then I'll tell you this, so for their credit, the units did charge if I just plugged in. So if I showed up and just put my credit card in, pulled it out, it charged just fine. But I'm on a free account because I bought the car and got 2 years of free charging. So it's actually the verification of my free charging that was the issue with this.
Yeah. So no excuses. They should work that out. They should work that out for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully the IRA legislation is gonna, augment our electrification ambitions. And are we going to talk about that? Are we going to talk about the grid upgrades? I don't know. I haven't had time to review the docket, but
I don't mention it, but we could mention the fact that Bloomberg came out with a sweet headline that said electric semis will pull as much electricity as a small town. So there's going to be megawatt chargers. And a megawatt, that's like, a house is 1 to 2 kW at any time. That's 500 to 1,000 houses. That's
well, and you think about the Tesla charger network, John, great network, but it's not designed for semis, right? So
going to be whole different sets of hardware.
You're going to need different, you're going to have to put those chargers in the truck stops where there's lots of space for truck parking, et cetera, right? So there's room because these things are big. They've got trailers, my goodness, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're trailering a 40
to 53, 40 to 53 feet.
Right. Oh
Yep.
my God. Yeah. We got to build a lot of charging infrastructure.
I saw
totally doable.
I saw an analysis from, I can't remember which utility, but they said they're looking at truck stop charging. I mean, they must see an absolute bounty in revenue from charging trucks versus the oil people getting it. But one of the first things they're going to look for truck stops is to put them in locations where they don't have to upgrade the substation, where there's a power line that's big enough, or where they don't have to build a new substation, where there's a power line that's big enough and it can take 1, 2, 3 megawatt demand from that existing spot. So there's people doing hard work, hard analysis on where to place these units. And there's some ideas starting to bubble up from these utility groups who are trying to figure out how to optimize the first round, because later on, we're going to run out of spaces, and then you're going to have to start upgrading and building substations. And, building a substation is a couple $1 million, and, connecting to the big grid, that's a lot of cash. So it'd be interesting to watch how they do it. Be interesting to watch a lot, but it's coming. It's coming hard right now. And the grid's gonna, I did a site visit yesterday with a home builder on the Cape of Massachusetts. And we were talking about, he has a small solar project on his building already, and he wanted to add a new one for the rest of his roof. And he said something to me at the end of the conversation. He goes, listen, this first project is great. It's chopped off our bill by 20%, but our electricity still keeps going up. And I said, yeah. He goes, and, even if the cost of fuel falls from the solar or the wind, or the price of gas falls, and, he seemed to be conscious of those things. He goes, they're still going to have to upgrade the grid for all of these electric vehicles that we have to now include chargers for in almost every house in Massachusetts. So it's becoming a code requirement in Mass that houses have to be charger ready, or maybe even have an EV charger already. And the grid upgrades are in his head as to why he needs to do more solar today, is because he specifically said the grid upgrades are going to keep driving the cost of the grid, because all these power lines are really old and da 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 da. He's a construction guy. He knows kind of what's going on, and grid upgrades are going to be a big thing. So maybe that's the next wave, is to learn how to sell some copper.
Yeah, so what this sparks for me is that, okay, if you're a solar installer today, let's just talk about residential. Tomorrow you're a battery installer and a heat pump installer and a panel upgrader, right? These three things are going to have to happen on the vast majority of our homes, millions and millions of homes. And that's why solar installers need to think more long-term. They've been in very one-hit mode, right? We're going to get a customer one time and that's it, and then we're done. And that doesn't tend to make them very customer friendly or really concerned even about the long-term viability of their products or their projects. But truly, and this is why I'm excited about Hyundai Home, for example. I'm a huge fan of Hyundai. You're living the Hyundai dream yourself, but they literally have launched a Hyundai Home now because they see it. You're going to need an EV charger.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need a solar array and a battery, and and potentially a panel upgrade, right? And they are not promoting a smart panel on this website, but of course a smart panel would be a very good thing. Because if you want to be able to island, right, then you can dynamically control what loads, etc. This is a golden opportunity though for installers, right? Today, solar, tomorrow, really it's electrification of the home and transportation, and everybody's going to need it. And it's just, so it's those forward-thinking installers that are really going to get in the game and benefit from this. And Barry talks about this on the Energy Show. Check out the Energy Show. That's one of my all-time favorite podcasts. We're going to have to be picky and choosy. It's 11:30. So, what is worth talking about? You know, the story about Germany pushing back against IRA incentives. I don't understand that story. So if you want to talk about that, I'm happy to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, high level. Europe.
Well, what's the story? What's the story?
So the story is first that both Europe and Germany are they feel that the IRA has put their industrial base at a challenge when it comes to clean energy, specifically the incentives for EVs, which is pulling manufacturing to the US, the incentives for batteries, and maybe even solar panels, as well hydrogen. All of these items are, of course, very important in IRA. And so one angle is, hey, the United States shouldn't do this. You guys should change your law. Now, I've seen multiple people say, nope, not changing the EV law where you guys are just going to have to manufacture in the US. This is a jobs program. Canada even expressed a little bit of displeasure with it, but I didn't really hear much about their displeasure. What I did hear, though, is that they simply passed their own version of the investment tax credit. And it now looks like Europe might do similar actions in order to, protect themselves from what they consider is, in essence, just a big challenge for their manufacturing base. And even the Australians have said the American hydrogen action might affect their ability to meet their goals with hydrogen. So it's interesting to watch people, nation states who are trying their best to be good companies, to build up green energy, to manufacture. It's interesting to watch that occur and their reaction while we here are celebrating it because we're like, yes, we got great pricing. We're going to have a good deal. We're going to be able to install a lot of solar for a long time.
I think other people, what this thinks of to me, John, is big companies influencing politics. It's like Europe is trying to be somewhat protectionist now about manufacturing, right? Because they're afraid manufacturing is going to get pushed to the US. Come on. It's like, it's a both and, right? There's going to be so much demand for electrification of transportation, batteries, grid infrastructure, et cetera. And this is just friction for the energy transition, right? And this is why capitalism is ultimately a very flawed model. It generates wealth, yeah, but it also generates friction when you're trying to make a transition like this, right? It can gum up the system very, very quickly.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to slow stuff down and break stuff than it is to build it and get it deployed. And we humans, for some reason, we don't really think a lot about this. You see the political crisis in the US, right? Like it's a lot easier to cause a January 6th event than it is to have a functional democracy. And it's a lot easier to have crazy town happening on Twitter than it is to have functional dialogue. You take a piece of paper and you set it on fire and it'll just burn, right? But making that piece of paper, super hard. Burning it into ashes, super easy. That is the analogy. And we have to think about this with the energy transition. We have to become much more intentional and step back from, well, we want to make money. Making money is easy, actually, in the greater scheme of things, because sunlight is super abundant and the earth is full of natural resources like soil and gold and lithium, right? We have all the resources we could possibly dream of. And yet we're stuck in this caveman. Oh, I want it and I want you to not have it. And it's going to be the end of us.
Yep. So it's
slow
complex. Yeah, it's complex. I get it, and it'd be neat if we had an IRA that was specifically for partners, people who we felt were fair, or maybe people in certain positive trade agreements. But I don't think that's illegal globally in like the World Trade Organization. But it would be cool if we could have like a Europe US IRA, or a North America one with Canada and Mexico and everybody in Central America included as well. But this is international politics and something to consider. So, but the very next story that I have on the document is QCell.
Yeah.
Well, just quick. QCell and a European consortium are coming together to develop a perovskite plus silicon solar panel. And they're pushing on it. They're trying. QCell is a South Korean company that was purchased from a German company. QCell was the original. It was bought by Hanwha, and now it's still doing things in Europe. And Europe is pushing. Our friend Meyer Burger is still pushing very hard to get the European Union to get a 20 to 40 gigawatt per year manufacturing base of solar modules. So it's everybody's pushing hard, and I wish you could do the finger snap. Hey, let's figure out a quick solution to make all these challenges tie together and work nicely. But it's more challenging than that.
Yeah, I mean, I like this story. I like the next story about First Solar also, and that QCells is getting in this, I call it hybrid, for lack of a better expression, or tandem, right?
Tandem.
Tandem is the technical expression. Silicon perovskite tandem cells. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's going to produce more efficient solar panels at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
And so you can get more kWdc on less space. And because, let's face it, a lot of buildings, you can't get 100%, you can't offset 100% of the load of many buildings because they're space constrained. And it's okay if you can go to ground, but you can't always go to ground. And so we do need more efficient solar panels.
And of course, efficiency increasing to greater than 30% means that your price per kilowatt hour is going to be 50% cheaper, because the same hardware that used to cost $1 to produce 1 watt, you're now going to have, 66 cents to produce that same watt of hardware, because you will output, 50% more from the same component. And that's pretty significant. So I'm also a perovskite fanboy, and the famous Jenny Chase of Bloomberg, NEF, New Energy Finance, she's always like, it ain't real until it's a major manufacturer actually building them. This is yet again another research thing. So you got to take my fanboyism with a little bit of grain of salt here. But it is Europe. This is Europe working hard, moving forward on stuff. And we could talk about more solar panels, because I got a great announcement. The first time we have solar cells coming to the United States, manufacturing for a decade, which is
a
big.
story from Kelly Pickrell at Solar Power World, right? America will begin producing silicon solar cells for the first time in half a decade. Oh, okay. What was happening half a decade ago that went away? I don't know that answer, but
maybe not Suniva. I don't even want to bring their name up, but I don't know who was making solar cells. Maybe it was Solar World, or SunPower when they bought out Solar World in Oregon. That's my guess for the only person who's been making solar cells in the US that have gone into a solar panel. But this is Enel. This is It's a really nice product from what I've read about. I've never actually seen one of these panels in real life, but it's a heterojunction
Is
solar
it
module.
Enel or Enel? I always say Enel. It's an
Wonderful.
Italian company, right?
Enel.
Enel is a big Italian company, and now they're vertically integrating though.
I always thought they were a project developer until
Right,
I
me
learned a
too.
year or two ago that they were a manufacturer as well. And it's like, huh,
Yeah, get
that's
this.
true vertical right there.
They're not the only developer that thinks about making solar panels, right? I was visiting a company in Rhode Island, that a little solar company, and they're thinking about making solar panels because solar panels are so expensive and they're so hard to get. And it would be a game changer. And so I get it why a big developer like Enel would want to go into making solar panels, because they're consuming so many of them, they may as well. And now we have good incentives. So the industrial legislation does work. The IRA legislation does work. We're going to get 3 gigawatt capacity. That's nothing to sneeze at. We're doing around 20 gigs a year, right? So
Not yet. We're aiming for 20 now. The United States is probably closer to 10 right now. Maybe with all with 2/3 of that, half of that being
I mean,
first solar
installations.
Oh, installations. Yes, pardon me. Sorry. I thought you were saying manufacturing. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing about 20.
Yeah.
And that number is going to grow real fast. That number is going to start increasing going forward really fast, it seems.
Yeah, it's going to triple. It's going to triple in the next 5 years, I think.
Some projections like that. Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of pricing, I just for the first time in a year and a half, solar polysilicon pricing has started to come down. Started about 2 weeks ago. It's been getting projected. And now I'm starting to see the spot price coming out of Taiwan, the data showing that the price of silicon is officially coming down. And that's leading to the whole supply chain behind it also dropping. This is maybe the second or third week in the link that I showed. And it's still, relatively high compared to what it was at our, the lows in the early 2000s before COVID hit. But for the first time, we see a lot of red in this chart instead of seeing green. And that's pretty cool. So come next year, we might see a nickel getting knocked off, a dime getting knocked off, because we are going to be manufacturing a huge volume. Yeah. We're going to be manufacturing a huge volume of polysilicon. And that's just pretty nice. And you can see it all across the board. Pricing starting to slide downward, and this is cool. Double-digit percentages. We like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that top one is the one that matters the most, of course.
Polysilicon price. Yeah.
Yeah, because that feeds into everything else. Because it's the stock for everything else.
Yeah. 2% change. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's good.
And this is the second or third week or that we've seen downward progression. About a month ago, he said nobody wants to pay more. It looks like there's downward pressure. Everything was flat. And then boom, the very next week, pricing was down. Week after, pricing down. Week after, pricing down. So we should expect to see something like this going on, maybe some bumps here and there, but we should expect polysilicon pricing and then module pricing to start coming down all the time over the next, maybe for a whole year, and maybe even for 2 to 3 years, because right now we are seeing solar module manufacturing capacity and polysilicon manufacturing capacity just go up, up, up. I mean, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. Globally, by the end of next year, we expect 500 gigawatts of polysilicon manufacturing capacity to exist. And by the end of this year, we should be at 300 gigawatts of solar panel manufacturing capacity. And that's huge. I just saw a headline from Bloomberg saying that the US or the world may break 260 gigawatts installed, almost 50% growth over last year. That is a gigantic number. and as we're supplying the polysilicon for it and growing that, we're seeing this price start to come down again. And so hopefully polysilicon leads to a glut again. We always have these cycles where it's, up and down. And, maybe this is going to be the start of another downward cycle, which should be pretty cool.
Yeah. I just see it kind of like the weather. It ebbs and flows. And if it's going down now, just wait, it'll go up. But
probably.
But, because in the greater scheme of things, we are asymptoting on that cost adoption curve, right? When
Correct.
It comes to this equipment, the big drop has already happened. We're going to see some small, slow decline over time now, but it's not going to be dramatic until there's some new radical breakthrough technology, and that could cause another quantum shift, so to speak. Oh,
like perovskite+silicon.
Why did we wait so long to do the John Weaver story in PV Magazine?
There's so many different things to talk about, Tim.
You're
many
too
different
demure,
things.
John. You're too
Yes.
demure.
Yes. Yeah, so this is today, Timothy. There's supposed to be an anti-circumvention release ruling on the Southwest Asian companies. The Southwest Asian manufacturing facilities that are really, we know this, Chinese manufacturing facilities in other countries. And today we may get, and we're supposed to get it, but we're supposed to get a ruling on whether or not these 4 nations and their solar panels that are coming from China should get another tariff. And some people are saying it could be 30 to 50%, which would make the utility scale product, gain on 50 cents a watt, which would pretty much knock it out of business in the United States. This is my opinion on the fact that we shouldn't have a tariff. And I have a couple of bullet points so we can break down what it is. But it's, it really comes down to, first, we want Chinese technology now. They're amongst the leaders in making quality solar panels globally.
Yep. 70% of our solar modules consumed in America come from Asia. Just so our listeners understand this, there's a good reason for that. We did not invest in manufacturing in the US, and now we're playing catch up.
So quality of product. Number 2, scroll down a tiny bit more just so I make sure I follow the article. Number 2, the IRA is going to push the cost of manufacturing panels below a dime. And if the people of the United States are going to benefit from that cost being under a dime, then it's going to be required, this is just the way business works, that there's somebody standing behind these manufacturers, giving them pressure to give good pricing. Because if they don't have to do good pricing, they're just going to be like, well, the competition's at 51, let's go to 50. And if that's the case, then, there goes the IRA savings. So I argue the Chinese need to be there to put some pressure on the U.S. manufacturers. Number 3, we say we need to get almost a terawatt of solar installed by 2035. We need everything globally to support us. And to cut off the largest resource globally of this product at this moment is it's going to spite ourselves. And so we should be conscious. And then the last one I put out there is that, from a political standpoint, it might be a good thing to keep pressure on China in a dynamic manner. First, we should keep the Uyghur protective law in place so that anything that comes from Western China, which is tainted by forced labor, shouldn't be coming to the US. And second, maybe it's good to keep the mainland tariffs in place, not in order to help the US marketplace, but in order to force China to go global with their manufacturing, which helps those countries where it gets moved to, and maybe even helps the world just by diversifying the supply chain. Because right now, China's zero COVID policy is kind of making a lot of business people nervous. Can't get product. So those are my 4 reasons why I think it's pretty good.
What are all those Chinese workers going to do, though, if they're not, right? If they're not manning Chinese factories? And and it's not like China isn't, let's be clear, China is investing in foreign infrastructure, especially in places like Africa. So, anyway, it's a good story. I'm anti-tariff, basically. I think we know enough to know that tariffs are not the answer. But I have a question. This says that IRA is going to drive the cost of American-made solar panels below 10 cents.
Yes.
Okay. And if I'm a solar panel manufacturer taking advantage of IRA, building a factory, making cheap modules, there's going to be huge demand for those cheap modules. Get that. Why do I need competition from outside the US? Because I've got competition from inside the US.
If that competition scales, well, no, you're going to have competition from inside the US all at the same price point. Everybody, because we know, listen, the truth is that everybody seems to collude in business. There is, the independent business.
It is illegal, but yeah, the market will equilibrate.
The market will move to weird places. Where it's going to move, I don't know.
What's a cheap American solar panel today? Like what's the best American made panel?
Listen, the price of
50s. It's in the 50s.
Well, it used to be in the 30s until the price of international panels went up, and they said, you know what? Let's just increase our price to match the international product. That's what QCell did out of Georgia. Because I saw the price increase myself. We used to be able to get QCell modules in the 30s. Now you can't get until the 50s. And that's because they said, you know what? The projects can sustain our increased price. And until the industry really scales, how that's going to move forward, that's a big question. Are we going to keep sharing? This is just a funny one. Are we gonna grow our base, and are we going to give good prices, or are we just going to try and maximize the revenue that we can make out of this? And if you're a cold-hearted businessman, you're going to maximize the revenue, and that means you're going to look at what's in the marketplace, and you're going to push your price up to just below it so you can sell your product. Or you'll try and match it and be like, it's American made. Or you'll increase it because of the domestic product requirements. So, I think, if you're a capitalist, you believe you got to have a foot on your neck pushing you to make you do better. And I don't know. I think we need pressure to be better business people. I think we always need some pressure to do better work. So
sure, competition good. Want that.
So
all right, we're going to wrap up with a O&M story. Somebody's been growing some weeds in their solar array, and I did see. I was talking to
You guys share the image.
I know. I was talking to a developer or an installer down in Florida, and flat mounted solar is a thing down in Florida for a variety of reasons. Sun is higher in the sky, so flat works from a production perspective, but you want lower wind load, right? You want to put that stuff flat because the hurricanes are coming and they will blow your array off the roof if you don't mount it flat. I don't know where this project is, but that is the downside. If you don't go on your roof then and check it out periodically, you're going to get a bunch of lovely, these look like ferns almost.
I don't know.
It must be someplace tropical.
Aloha.
You don't know where this is from?
Hawaii. I guarantee you it's Hawaii because the guy's company says Aloha Solar.
There you go.
So that's my guess. You can probably click on his profile.
Too, where high wind is a factor in Hawaii, and they're a warmer in a warmer latitude. This guy looks like Gary V. He's the Gary V of solar.
Yeah. Now check that one out. Look at that module. That module kind of collapsed or something happened.
That's ugly.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. That's, you know,
funky.
yeah, it's
That's
makes me
that's really funky.
got to work hard, man. Got to take care of our, got to take care of our gear.
I wonder how
So
old this array is.
I don't know, man, but that's even a weird panel. What's the edge of it as? There's no aluminum frame.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of modules these are. Interesting stuff. So don't do that to your solar panel, folks. Don't let your weeds take over, because they will eat your solar installation, apparently.
Don't let your weeds take over. I love it. All right. Well, lovely episode. How can our listeners find you, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy?
CommercialSolarGuy.com. That's the best place. We got a contact us page. We're going to be doing a little work on our website, get a little more information up there, but that's really it. Commercial Solar and LinkedIn, of course, John Fitzgerald Weaver. I am always sharing the stuff I write for PV Mag. Tim,
That's
what
good.
about you? Knock on your door. Hey, Tim, can people come to your new house in Illinois?
Yeah, sure. Come to Champaign, Illinois. Visit me. I would love
Yes.
to. I'd love to meet more of my listeners. You can find me at cleanpowerhour.com and subscribe right there. Right, their little pop up here. You see all of our content. I had a great interview with Jeremy Kent. He is the Tim Montague of wind energy. He's doing behind the meter wind for industrial facilities. Great
Wow.
story, and he's based in the Midwest and focuses on the Midwest, and that's no
Behind the
accident.
meter.
We have a lot of good wind. I know, behind the meter wind. You don't hear much about it. Most solar installers look at it and go, doesn't pencil. But Jeremy's figured it out. He's cracked the code. He does wind PPAs.
Nice.
And these are like 1 to 5 megawatt projects. His minimum size is 1.5 megawatts. So he's doing these, industrial size wind turbines, not ginormous ones, but anyway.
Well, for ground-based turbines, it's like 3 to 4 megawatts is the larger sizes. So 1.5 to 2.5, that might be, that's still, it's nothing like the offshore ones that are 15 megs. But for ground-based, he's close-ish to the larger size.
We have a bunch of 2.5 megawatt turbines here in Illinois.
There you go.
The first wave that hit here in the early mid 2000s, 2008 to 2012. So anyway, go to cleanpowerhour.com. Please, subscribe. You can click on Apple Podcast or Spotify. You can listen on your favorite player. You can give us a rating and review, most importantly. And you can learn about me. I did an interview with James McWalter on his podcast, the Carbotnik podcast. And I tell my story and how I got into solar. And it started when I was 10. It just took me 40 years to really smell the coffee and get into PV. And I say in the intro, why I waited, I don't know. It's anybody's guess. Sometimes we're slow on the uptake, but I'm here now. That's what matters. So anyway, check it out. You can click on that YouTube icon right there. Okay. At the top. And that's how you find our channel. And these live shows every Thursday at noon Eastern, 11 Central, 10 Mountain, 9 Pacific. Well, thank you, John. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Enjoy yourself as well, Tim.
I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Take care.